What is a short amount of time for you to finish a novel? Because they have to be very subjective from writer to writer.
True. Short time for me is 1 to 3 months.
That's very short.
Yeah, usually about 45,000 words is a novel for me. And I can usually do that. I've been stuck a little bit here and there on the stuff that I'm working on, but that's usually the time frame for me to write something.
And why you think you are that fast? Is it the way you organize your time? It's how you use your creativity? What is it?
I type really fast. I can either sit down with a pen and a notebook and sort of get this, like, kind of get possessed by what I'm writing and then lay it all out. So it's a journey at that moment. I think I become the characters, and so I write it all. If you've ever seen the movie based on Stephen King's book, The Dark Half, when they show him with the character's a writer, and when they show him writer, he goes into a trance with a piece of paper and a pencil, and he scribbles his entire book, and only he can read it, And I feel that, I think I don't scribble like he did, but it's close to that. It's this sort of being taken over by the art and I'm the vessel through which that project comes through. And it's something I've developed since the age of 14. I'm 51 now. So since 14, I've put in those hours of writing, editing, because once you write it, you spend the rest of the time. Like, if I can finish a book in a month, it will be 2 years before the book is ready to be published.
Yeah.
So that's my approach to that creativity, and it's something I've developed over many years. Yeah. It's worked for me. So.
And what is also interesting, and at least that's my experience, that sometimes the person that wrote the book is not the same that will edit. Because let's say, as you said,
right,
1 year have passed, and a lot of things have impacted you, as a human being. So you might, so that you might have changed perspective, let's say, about society, or about love or death, but your sensitivity, it's different. Let's say you care more about certain things, you think others matter more, and you're going to put different passion, or you're going to get into detail in a way you wouldn't, or the other way around. So in a way, as you said, if the book is written in 2 years, it's written by a few different people that belong to one.
Yeah, I've got really good editors that I work with at the publishers, and they've been very helpful. Paige Johnson is my editor at Outcast Press, and she knows exactly what it is that my book is missing, and she'll give me those, and she'll suggest those ingredients, and I add them, and it really works. But also, you have to allow the work to transform. So if I was going to give a little bit of advice to a writer, it's like, well, write everything you want to say, and then set it aside, let it, ferment for a while, go back to it. If something's not working, change it, remove it, So yeah, you're right. From the moment that it's finished, written in its raw stage, until it finally sees publication, there's been a big transformation that's happened. And that's supposed to happen.
Yeah. So what makes a writer a writer? I reckon it's not only publishing books. Like, what's your view on what a writer is?
That's a good question. That's a big question. Someone who can express what's inside, speak on behalf of others, I guess, in a sense that, like, I can put myself in other people's shoes and see what they're going through, so I can write from that perspective. Putting into words what you observe. I think a lot of writers spend time living and observing, having conversations that become a body of work, or that becomes part of the story that you're writing. Even though most writing is biographical, I hold to that. I also, most of my stories are other people's stories, things that people have told me, um, things they've experienced, things I've observed, and so those characters that I've created, most of them are real life people. I've just changed them a little bit, changed their names, but their situations are pretty straightforward. I think most of my books that I've written, a lot of those stories have occurred in some way.
So there is a social aspect, which is sitting with others, listening to what's going on in their lives, and somehow bringing to the books. Maybe there is something about it we just don't transfer without adding, any elements, some of your imagination, or some things that will make it more interesting. Probably it's not just going from A to Z. There are things happening on the way that will make it more literature piece. So I see that your view of a writer is someone active, someone out and about, and not just sitting on the basement or on the top of the hill and watching the road. Like, you need a degree of socials to be a good writer. Am I correct?
To be a good writer, to make it genuine, especially dialogue, dialogue has to be real. Otherwise, it doesn't. It comes off as very false. Writing it can be a lonely task. I spent a lot of time in front of a computer typing.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time reading. I mean, I tend to be a private person anyway, so I don't really do much socializing. But you have to. I think you have to experience the world and everything. I remember in high school, I told a friend, like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna write. I'm gonna just write. I'm gonna go to college for a little bit, and then I'm gonna write." And she told me, "Well, you haven't really lived or experienced anything, so how can you write?" I'm like, "Well, I've experienced this thus far." But I got what she meant. And since then, obviously you go through all the stages of everything in your life that a human experiences. And that builds up your own personal character just as a person. But for a writer, it certainly creates a lot of kindle for creativity, for that fire of creativity.